This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Welcome, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a question that's both ancient and incredibly relevant. What is life? And wow, you guys really delivered on the sources. We've got everything from ancient philosophy to cutting-edge astrobiology. This is going to be epic.
I know, it's quite the collection. It really highlights how long humans have been fascinated by this question.
It's mind-blowing, right? Like, we're not just talking about figuring out biology. This is about grappling with the essence of existence. So where do we even begin with something this big?
Well, I think it's helpful to start with how people have thought about life throughout history, kind of set the stage.
Right, like a historical roadmap for our deep dive.
Exactly. And some of your sources take us all the way back to ancient Greece, to philosophers like Empedocles. He believed the universe was composed of 4 basic elements: earth, water, air, and fire.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. And he thought fire was like the essence of life because of its connection to heat and movement.
Right. It was this vital, energetic force that animated living things. And while it might seem simplistic now, his ideas and those of other early philosophers really laid the groundwork for later scientific thought.
It's amazing how those early ideas, even if they weren't scientifically accurate, still kind of pointed in the right direction,
Exactly. It's like they were intuitively sensing these fundamental truths about life.
It makes you wonder if there's something inherently human about that desire to understand what makes us and everything around us alive.
I think you're onto something there. It's this innate curiosity that drives us to explore, to question, and to seek deeper meaning.
So from those early philosophical musings, how did our understanding of life evolve?
Well, a major turning point was the development of cell theory in the 19th century.
Right, the idea that all living things are made up of these tiny building blocks called cells.
Exactly. And with the advent of powerful microscopes, scientists were able to peer into this microscopic world and uncover the incredible complexity within.
And around the same time, Darwin's theory of evolution revolutionized our understanding of how life changes and diversifies over time.
Absolutely. Darwin's insights provided a framework for understanding the interconnectedness of all life forms and how they've adapted to their environments over millions of years.
So we went from philosophical ideas about fire as the essence of life to a scientific understanding of cells and evolution.
Precisely. It was a gradual shift from more mystical explanations to a more mechanistic view of life. Think about it like a clock.
Okay, a clock. How's that relate to life?
Well, a clock is made up of many intricate parts that work together in a precise way to tell time. And similarly, living organisms are made up of complex systems of molecules, cells, and organs that interact in highly coordinated ways.
I see. So instead of attributing life to some mystical force, we started to understand it as a result of these intricate mechanisms working together.
Exactly. It's like cracking open the clock to see all the gears and springs that make it tick.
It's fascinating how our understanding of life went from this kind of poetic, almost spiritual view to a more concrete scientific one.
It is, isn't it? And yet, even with all our scientific advancements, defining life still remains surprisingly tricky. Some of the sources you provided really highlight that challenge.
Right. Like, you'd think by now we'd have this neat little definition, but it's way more complicated than that.
It is. We often think of living things as these distinct individuals, but nature loves to blur the lines.
Oh, yeah. The sources talked about some really mind-bending examples of that.
Yeah.
Like colonial organisms.
Think about siphonophores. They look like a single organism, like a jellyfish, but they're actually colonies of specialized individuals working together.
So it's like a whole bunch of tiny creatures teaming up to act like one big one.
Exactly. It makes you question what we even mean by individual when it comes to life. And then there are superorganisms.
Oh, yeah, like ant colonies.
Yeah.
Each ant is an individual, but the colony as a whole exhibits this complex, coordinated behavior that goes beyond what any single ant can do.
It's as if the colony itself becomes a kind of living entity.
Right. It's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And those sources also talked about mutualism.
Ah, yes, those fascinating relationships where different species are so interdependent that they can't survive without each other.
Like lichen, Right.
Right.
It's a combination of a fungus and an alga or a cyanobacteria. They work together to survive in environments where neither could make it on its own.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, where does one organism end and the other begin?
It's like nature is constantly challenging our neat little categories. So if individuals aren't always so clear-cut, what about those building blocks of life cells?
Well, the discovery of cells was a monumental moment in our understanding of life. From Robert Hooke's early observations of cork under a microscope to the development of cell theory, recognizing that all living things are made up of cells was revolutionary.
It's amazing to think that something so small could hold the key to understanding something as grand as life.
It is. And what's even more mind-blowing is that every cell in our body, despite its specialized function, contains the same DNA blueprint.
I know. Like, how does a skin cell know to be a skin cell and a brain cell knows to be a brain cell if they have the same instructions?
That's where epigenetics comes in, changes that modify gene expression without altering the underlying DNA sequence. Think of it like this.
Okay, I'm listening.
Imagine DNA as a vast library of instructions, right? Epigenetic mechanisms are like librarians, highlighting specific sections that each cell type needs to read.
So every cell has the entire cookbook, but they only focus on the recipes relevant to their specific job.
Exactly. And one way this happens is through DNA methylation.
DNA what now?
Methylation, it's basically like a switch that turns genes on or off.
So some genes are like on in the skin cell but off in a brain cell, and that's all thanks to these methylation switches.
Exactly. It's this intricate dance of gene regulation that allows cells to specialize and form the complex tissues and organs that make up a living organism.
Wow, it's incredible how much complexity is packed into a single cell.
It really is. But speaking of complexity and blurring the lines between living and non-living, your sources introduced a rather curious character. Nanobacteria.
Ah, yes, nanobacteria.
Yeah.
Initially thought to be the smallest life forms ever discovered, right?
That's right. But then research suggested that they might actually be self-replicating mineral complexes.
Wait, so not actually alive, like tiny little robots made of minerals.
It's still a bit of a mystery, but it really challenges our assumptions about what it takes to be alive.
Right. Like, if something can replicate and grow without being a cell, does that mean our definition of life is too narrow?
That's a good question. Nanobacteria definitely throw a wrench into our traditional understanding.
So size isn't everything when it comes to life. And maybe there are forms of life out there that are so different from what we know that we haven't even considered them yet.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? That our knowledge is always evolving and there's still so much we don't know.
Totally. But let's shift gears a bit. One of the key features of life that came up in those sources was homeostasis. It's all about staying balanced, right?
Exactly. Homeostasis is an organism's ability to maintain a stable internal environment, even when things are changing externally.
Like how our bodies regulate our temperature no matter the weather.
Precisely. We sweat when it's hot to cool down, and we shiver when it's cold to generate heat. It's all about keeping our internal systems running smoothly.
It's like our bodies are these finely tuned machines, constantly making adjustments to stay in equilibrium.
A perfect analogy. And it's not just about temperature. Our bodies are regulating all sorts of things. Blood sugar levels, pH balance, fluid levels, you name it.
Wow, so it's like a constant balancing act happening inside us all the time.
It is. And this ability to maintain internal stability is crucial for the survival of every living organism.
It makes you appreciate how much is going on behind the scenes
Oh,
just
yeah.
to keep us functioning. But this whole homeostasis thing, is it just about individual organisms?
Well, some scientists propose that this principle might extend to even larger systems.
Like what? Ecosystems.
Exactly. The Gaia hypothesis, for example, suggests that the Earth itself functions as a self-regulating system, with all its living and non-living components interacting to maintain a balance.
Whoa, so the planet's like one giant superorganism. That's a pretty wild idea.
It is. And while it's still a topic of debate, it does raise fascinating questions about the interconnectedness of life and the planet.
So from tiny cells to the entire planet, homeostasis seems to be a key theme. But what about the very beginning of life? How did life actually arise from non-living matter in the first place?
Ah, yes, the ultimate mystery, abiogenesis. It's a question that has puzzled scientists for centuries. And while we don't have all the answers, your sources highlighted some intriguing clues, like the Miller-Urey experiment.
Oh yeah, the one where they simulated the conditions of early Earth and were able to create amino acids.
Exactly. They showed that under the right conditions, simple compounds could spontaneously assemble into the building blocks of proteins, the workhorses of life.
That's so cool. So we know those basic ingredients can arise from non-living matter, but how they went from that to actual living cells is still a big unknown.
Exactly. That leap from non-life to life remains one of the biggest mysteries in science.
It's like we're piecing together this giant puzzle, but there are still some crucial pieces missing.
That's a great way to put it. But while we're still figuring out the details of life's origins here on Earth, what if life also exists elsewhere?
Ooh, now we're talking. You included some fascinating sources about astrobiology, the search for life beyond our planet.
It's a field that's bursting with possibilities. With discoveries of thousands of exoplanets, planets orbiting other stars, the potential for life beyond Earth is simply staggering.
And what about those icy moons in our own solar system, like Europa and Enceladus, the ones with those subsurface oceans?
They're definitely top contenders. Those oceans could potentially harbor life. And who knows, it might be drastically different from anything we've ever seen.
Right. Like, imagine creatures adapted to living in those frigid, dark oceans. What would they look like? How would they function? It's mind-boggling.
It really is. And that's what makes astrobiology so exciting. It forces us to expand our definition of life and consider possibilities beyond our wildest imaginations.
It seems our deep dive into what it means to be alive has only just scratched the surface.
It has. There's still so much to uncover, so many mysteries to unravel. And that's what makes this journey so compelling, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So what other wonders of life await us in our remaining sources? Stay tuned for the next part of our deep dive.
This is your need to know. This is your need to know. This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been on quite a journey so far, exploring the concept of life from ancient philosophies to the search for extraterrestrial beings. And now let's delve into some of those defining characteristics that set living things apart, those processes and features that really scream, hey, I'm alive.
I'm ready for more. Where should we start?
Well, one of the most fundamental aspects of life is its ability to, well, keep going, to grow and reproduce, ensuring that life continues.
Right? Like life begets life. It's this incredible cycle of continuation.
Exactly. And your sources explore this from different angles, from the microscopic level of cellular growth to the complex dance of sexual reproduction.
Oh yeah, the sources talked about how cells don't just divide, they actually grow too. It's like they have their own little construction projects going on inside.
Precisely. It's not just about making more cells, it's about those cells increasing in mass, gathering materials, and building new structures.
So it's like a carefully choreographed process, making sure the cell grows in a controlled and organized way.
Absolutely. There are all sorts of molecular mechanisms in place that regulate cell growth, ensuring it happens at the right time, in the right way, and to the right extent.
It's like there's this intricate communication network within the cell, making sure everything runs smoothly.
You got it. And this regulation is essential for maintaining the health of the organism. When things go wrong with cell growth, well, that's when problems like uncontrolled proliferation, like cancer, can occur.
It makes sense. Too much of a good thing can be bad. But how does reproduction, the creation of new organisms, fit into all of this?
Reproduction is the ultimate act of continuation, right? It's how life ensures its legacy. And your sources highlight the amazing diversity of reproductive strategies out there, from sexual to asexual reproduction.
Yeah, I was particularly intrigued by the section on sexual reproduction. It's remarkable how two-parent organisms can contribute their genetic material to create offspring with unique combinations of traits. It's like nature's way of shuffling the deck and dealing out new hands.
Exactly. Sexual reproduction involves the fusion of gametes, specialized cells that carry half of each parent's genetic material. And through this process, offspring inherit a blend of traits from both parents, leading to greater genetic diversity.
It's like nature's way of hedging its bets, making sure there's enough variation in a population to handle whatever challenges come along.
Precisely. And this genetic diversity is thought to be a key driver of evolution, allowing populations to adapt to ever-changing environments. But not all organisms rely on this intricate dance of sexual reproduction.
Right, some organisms take a more straightforward approach.
Exactly. Like bacteria, they opt for asexual reproduction, creating offspring that are genetically identical to the parent. Think of it like making copies of a blueprint.
It's like a more efficient way to reproduce, but it seems like it would limit a population's ability to adapt to changing conditions, right?
You're absolutely right. Asexual reproduction is efficient and fast, but it sacrifices genetic diversity. It works well in stable environments, but can be a disadvantage when things start to change.
So it's like different reproductive strategies have evolved to suit the specific needs of organisms and their environments.
Yeah.
Each has its own pros and cons.
Exactly. It's a fascinating testament to the diversity of life and how it's constantly finding new ways to thrive.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, you mentioned earlier the idea of self-replication in non-biological systems.
Yeah.
That seems almost paradoxical. Can something reproduce without actually being alive?
It's a question that challenges our very definition of reproduction, and your sources offer some intriguing examples, like self-replicating computer programs or certain crystal formations.
So they're not alive in the traditional sense, but they can still create copies of themselves.
Exactly. It's a fascinating area of study that blurs the lines between living and non-living systems. But while these examples mimic certain aspects of biological reproduction, they lack the complexity and adaptability we see in living organisms.
It highlights the fact that life is more than just the ability to replicate. There's this whole suite of characteristics that come together to create something truly alive.
You got it. And your sources delve into some of those other characteristics like metabolism, adaptation, and responsiveness to stimuli.
Oh yeah, metabolism, the engine that keeps life running.
Yeah.
It's all about those intricate chemical processes that occur within an organism, right?
Yes. Metabolism encompasses all those reactions that transform energy and matter, allowing organisms to grow, repair themselves, and perform all those essential functions that keep them going.
It's like the ultimate energy conversion system, turning fuel into usable power and building materials for the body.
Exactly. And it's incredibly complex and tightly regulated, involving a vast network of enzymes and pathways working together in perfect harmony.
It's another example of that mind-blowing complexity that seems to be a recurring theme when we talk about life.
It is. And this complexity extends to how organisms adapt to their environments, another key characteristic highlighted in your sources.
Right. Adaptation, it's about evolving over time to better suit your surroundings, right?
Exactly. It's driven by natural selection, the process where traits that enhance survival and reproduction are more likely to be passed on to future generations.
So it's like nature's way of fine-tuning organisms to thrive in their particular niches.
Precisely. And adaptation is a continuous process, as environments are rarely static. Organisms that can adapt to these changes are the ones that persist and shape the diversity of life we see today.
It makes me think of those extremophiles we discussed earlier, those organisms that thrive in environments that would be lethal to most other life forms.
They're incredible examples of adaptation, pushing the boundaries of what we consider habitable. They've evolved unique mechanisms to cope with extreme temperatures, pressures, acidity, and even radiation.
It's a testament to the incredible resilience of life, finding ways to exist in even the most challenging of environments.
It is. And studying extremophiles not only broadens our understanding of life's potential here on Earth, but also informs our search for life beyond our planet.
It's like the more we explore the diversity of life on Earth, the more we expand our understanding of what's possible elsewhere.
Precisely. Now, your sources also highlighted another key feature of living systems: responsiveness to stimuli.
Right, like being able to sense and react to changes in your environment. That seems like a pretty fundamental aspect of being alive.
It is. It's what allows organisms to adjust their behavior and physiology to maintain that critical internal balance we call homeostasis.
So it's like a feedback loop where the organism senses a change and then responds accordingly to ensure its survival.
Exactly. Think about a plant growing towards light or an animal fleeing from a predator. These are all examples of responsiveness in action.
It's fascinating how life is constantly interacting with its surroundings, making adjustments, and ensuring its continued existence. It's like this incredible dance between an organism and its environment.
A beautiful way to put it. And this responsiveness is another example of the incredible diversity and adaptability of living systems.
It really is. We've covered so much ground already, from the molecular mechanisms of metabolism to the grand scale of adaptation and evolution. Is there anything else our sources touch on that really highlights what makes life so unique?
Well, they also delve into the importance of organization and complexity as key features of living systems.
Organization and complexity. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Think about it this way. Life isn't just a random collection of molecules. It's highly structured and organized, with different levels of complexity nested within each other.
It's like those Russian nesting dolls,
Right.
where each doll contains a smaller version of itself.
Exactly. And in living systems, this hierarchy of organization spans from the molecular level all the way up to the ecosystem level. At each level, there's a remarkable degree of complexity and interdependence.
Can you give us some concrete examples of this hierarchical organization in action?
Sure. At the most fundamental level, we have atoms bonding together to form molecules, which then assemble into macromolecules like proteins and nucleic acids. These macromolecules are the building blocks of cells, which in turn organize into tissues, forming organs and ultimately whole organisms.
Wow, it's like a series of building blocks, each level adding another layer of complexity and sophistication.
Exactly. And this hierarchical organization is essential for the functioning of living systems, allowing for specialization and coordination across different levels.
It's mind-boggling to think about all those intricate connections, from the tiniest molecules to the vastness of ecosystems. It really highlights the interconnectedness of life at all scales.
It does, and it's this complexity, this incredible web of interactions that makes studying life so fascinating and challenging. It's like trying to understand a vast symphony by listening to each instrument individually and then figuring out how they all work together to create the music.
So, to sum up our discussion so far, what are some key takeaways listeners should keep in mind as we continue exploring the mysteries of life?
Well, one of the most important takeaways is that defining life isn't as simple as ticking off a checklist. It's more about recognizing patterns, processes, and features that emerge from the complex interplay of molecules, cells, and organisms.
Right. It's not about finding a single defining characteristic. It's about understanding the symphony as a whole.
Exactly. Another crucial takeaway is that life is incredibly diverse and adaptable, showcasing the power of evolution to shape life in countless ways, leading to the incredible variety of forms we see today.
And this diversity isn't just about appearances. It's also about the incredible range of strategies that organisms have evolved to survive and thrive in their environments.
Absolutely. And as we've seen with those mind-bending examples of colonial organisms and superorganisms, the lines between individual organisms can get pretty blurry.
It's like nature is constantly challenging our neat little categories, reminding us that life is messy and interconnected.
It is, and this interconnectedness extends to the relationships between different species and the delicate balance of ecosystems.
Right. Understanding life means understanding that we're all part of this intricate web of relationships, from the tiniest microbes to the largest whales.
A profound insight. It highlights the importance of understanding life as a whole, recognizing the interconnectedness of its various parts.
So, with all we've discussed, are there still big unanswered questions that continue to drive scientific inquiry into the nature of life?
Oh, absolutely. There are so many fascinating mysteries out there, including the ultimate mystery of life's origins. How did life actually arise from non-living matter? It's a question that continues to challenge and inspire scientists.
And what about the possibility of life beyond Earth? That's a question that sparks the imagination and pushes the boundaries of our current understanding of life.
It is, and with the discovery of exoplanets and ongoing exploration within our own solar system, the search for extraterrestrial life is becoming increasingly sophisticated.
Imagine the implications of finding evidence of life on another planet. It would truly revolutionize our understanding of life's place in the universe.
It would indeed. It would be a paradigm-shifting discovery, forcing us to rethink our definitions of life and our place in the cosmos.
Well, we certainly covered a lot of ground in this discussion, but it seems our deep dive into the nature of life is far from over.
It's true. The quest to understand life is an ongoing journey, full of wonder, mystery, and endless possibilities for discovery.
And in our final segment, we'll explore some of those possibilities, delving into the ethical and philosophical implications of our understanding of life. We'll tackle questions like, what are the ethical boundaries of genetic engineering? How does our understanding of life impact our responsibility to other species and the planet? So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore how our scientific knowledge shapes our values and responsibilities in a world teeming with life. Welcome back to our final deep dive segment, everyone. We've been on quite a journey exploring the science of life from tiny cells to vast ecosystems and even the search for life beyond Earth. But now we're shifting gears a bit to explore something just as fascinating, the ethical and philosophical questions that arise when we really start to grapple with what it means to be alive.
It's true. Understanding life isn't just about the biology, is it? It also forces us to confront some really profound questions about our values, our responsibilities, and even the meaning of existence itself.
Right. It's like science gives us all this incredible knowledge about how life works, but then philosophy steps in and says, okay, but what does it all mean?
Exactly. And some of your sources really touch on these dilemmas, like take the concept of death. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But with all the advances in medical technology, things get a lot more complicated.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like, we used to define death pretty simply. No heartbeat, no breathing, that's it. But now, with things like CPR and life support, we can keep those functions going even when someone's brain has stopped working.
Precisely. It raises the question, how do we define the exact moment when life truly ends? It's not as clear-cut as it used to be.
So what do we use now to define death?
Well, the whole brain death criterion has become widely accepted, which means there's no detectable brain activity. But even that's not without its controversies.
It makes you realize that even something as seemingly fundamental as death is actually a moving target, constantly being redefined as our scientific knowledge and capabilities evolve.
It is, and this evolving understanding has huge implications for things like end-of-life decisions, organ donation, even legal definitions of death. It's a good example of how science and ethics are intertwined.
Totally. Speaking of ethics, the whole field of genetic engineering is a minefield of ethical questions. Like those sources you guys sent about CRISPR, that gene editing technology, it's mind-blowing. We can literally manipulate the building blocks of life now.
It's incredible, isn't it? The potential to cure diseases, enhance traits, even create new organisms. It's like we have this immense power at our fingertips.
But that's where those ethical questions come in, right? Like, where do we draw the line? What are the potential consequences of tinkering with the very essence of life?
Exactly. Those are questions we can't shy away from. We need to have open and honest conversations as a society about the ethical boundaries of genetic engineering.
Because it's not just about the science anymore. It's about our values and what kind of future we want to create.
Right. And these ethical considerations go beyond just human life, too. Your sources also touch on our responsibility to other species and the planet as a whole.
Yeah, like the whole concept of biodiversity and the delicate balance of ecosystems. It's like the more we learn about the interconnectedness of life, the more we realize that our actions have consequences far beyond ourselves.
Exactly. We're not isolated entities. We're part of this intricate web of life. And understanding that web, understanding how our actions impact it, is crucial for the health of the planet and all its inhabitants.
It's like that saying, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.
A powerful reminder of our responsibility to future generations.
So we've got death, genetic engineering, environmental responsibility. Are there any other big philosophical questions that pop up when we talk about life?
Well, there's one that's been pondered for millennia, and that's the meaning of life. What is it all about? Why are we here?
Oh yeah, the ultimate existential question. And one that science can't really answer for us, can it?
Not really. But that doesn't mean the question isn't worth exploring. In fact, grappling with it, even without finding a definitive answer, can lead to some profound insights about our values, our purpose, and how we choose to live our lives.
So it's more about the journey than the destination.
Exactly. It's about engaging in that process of self-discovery and reflection, allowing those big questions to guide us as we navigate the complexities of life.
It seems that understanding life isn't just about knowing the science. It's also about exploring those deeper ethical and philosophical questions that science inevitably brings to the surface.
I think that's a great way to sum it up. Understanding life is a multifaceted journey, a journey that encompasses scientific inquiry, ethical considerations, and philosophical reflection.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to thank you all for joining us on this incredible journey. It's been a wild ride, exploring everything from the inner workings of cells to the vastness of the cosmos, all in pursuit of understanding this remarkable phenomenon we call life.
It has been quite the adventure, and I hope our exploration has sparked your curiosity, challenged your assumptions, and left you with even more questions than answers.
Because ultimately, that's what makes the study of life so fascinating. It's a never-ending quest for knowledge, a journey that's full of wonder, mystery, and endless possibilities for discovery. So keep those brains buzzing, keep asking those big questions, and keep exploring the incredible diversity and complexity of life in all its forms. Until next time, everyone.
This is your need to know. In the silence of the night, where the stars align just right, we find solace in each other's eyes. Two hearts beating as one, in the dance that's just begun. We discover love that never dies. Hand in hand we face the storm, together we're so strong. In the echoes of our souls, our love will carry on. We two are one in the rhythm of our hearts, bound together, never torn apart. Through the highs and lows, we'll always be unified in harmony, you and me. Through the trials that we face in this ever-changing maze, we'll navigate the paths that lie ahead. With every step we take, a new chapter we create in the story of the life we led. Side by side we'll face the world with courage in our souls. In the symphony of our love, we'll find a way back home. We two are one in the rhythm of our hearts, bound together, never torn apart. Through the highs and lows, we'll always be unified in harmony, you and me. Through the laughter and the tears, in the passage of the years, we'll build a future strong and true. With every breath we take,